WNBA this season, I feel like we sort of had one of those particular growing pains where it's like some of the people that are coming in and watching the sport and are fans of the sport feel like maybe they're there for a weird reason. And now they've found sort of maybe one player to hyper-fixate on that they feel stands at odds with what a WNBA player is in their mind.
This WNBA season has exposed something that has been quietly building for a long time. The league is finally growing, but with that growth has come tension between longtime followers and the huge wave of new fans who have suddenly arrived. Many of the older fans seem confused or even bothered by the idea that some newcomers are here mainly because of one particular player. They treat it as if supporting an individual star instead of the entire league is somehow wrong or strange. Recently, Katie Nolan said this out loud, and what makes her comments even more surprising is where she said them, on Sue Bird's podcast. Sue Bird, one of the most respected figures in women's basketball, is not only a WNBA legend, but also oversees the USA Basketball Women's Program. Her podcast has been hosting conversations about this topic for months, and every time the discussion circles back to one message: the new fans are the issue. But here's what no one is willing to face directly. Katie Nolan's media career has been built on many chances that never worked out. ESPN hired her, gave her multiple shows, and each one failed to gain an audience. Today, she's mostly doing small appearances wherever she can get booked. So when someone with that record starts lecturing the very fans who essentially revived WNBA interest, it's worth asking what is truly going on. She says that some fans are in the arena for a weird reason. Let's look at what that actually means. She seems to think that people who support a single player, especially Caitlin Clark, are not legitimate supporters of women's basketball. She frames it as if liking Clark's shooting, her passing, her court vision, and the way she creates offense is somehow an odd motivation to tune in. But if we're talking about what's weird, then we need to be honest about how unusual the WNBA situation has been for nearly 3 decades. For most of its history, the league struggled to get more than a few 100,000 viewers per game. Many arenas were half empty. The NBA had to cover the league's yearly losses, which hovered around $10 million. And in many cases, fans seemed more interested in off-court drama and personal relationships between players than in the actual basketball being played. That was the norm for years. Then Caitlin Clark showed up. Suddenly, WNBA games that usually attracted a few 100,000 viewers were pulling in numbers close to 4 million. Ticket prices for Indiana Fever games shot up instantly. Road games sold out simply because Clark was in town. Overnight, she became the league's main attraction. Yet Katie Nolan is insisting that the people who follow her are somehow watching for weird reasons. There is nothing weird about millions of people becoming fans of a once-in-a-generation athlete. What's actually strange is pretending this sudden growth happened because of anything other than Clark's impact. And the numbers make that very clear. If the WNBA truly had a growing fan base independent of Clark, then year 2 of this surge would have shown huge gains. The league placed more games on national TV, improved streaming access, and offered better time slots. Everything was in place to keep building momentum, but the numbers only rose about 6%. That's not the kind of jump you see when an entire league becomes more popular. That's what happens when one player's fan base is carrying the league. And when you look specifically at games that don't involve Clark or Indiana, attendance and viewership look almost exactly the same as before. Teams like the Dream, the Wings, and the Mystics still struggle to fill arenas unless Clark is in the building. Now let's return to something Katie Nolan claimed. You paid the same money for your ticket. That statement is simply false. A regular seat for an Atlanta Dream game might cost $50. But once Indiana shows up, that same seat can jump to $200 or more. Minnesota Lynx tickets usually cost around $70. When Clark arrives, those prices can rise to around $250. Indiana Fever season tickets instantly became the most expensive in the entire league. Not because the team transformed, but because Clark joined. Fans of the Fever and fans traveling to see Clark pay 3 to 4 times more than other team supporters. They're not just paying the same, they're paying far more, and doing so gladly. Katie Nolan also suggests that new fans don't really love basketball, and only care about drama or player relationships. But if that were true, Then explain why millions of people who never watched the WNBA before suddenly started tuning in as soon as they had a player whose basketball skill impressed them. They're here because Clark makes the game exciting, not because of gossip or side stories. Then comes the gatekeeping, the claim that this conversation has been going on without you for years. In other words, because certain fans stuck around during the difficult years, they believe they have earned the right to judge new fans and tell them how they should enjoy the sport. But during those difficult years, where were all these voices who are now suddenly protective of the league? Katie Nolan worked in sports media for years and rarely talked about the WNBA. Many journalists ignored the league entirely because it didn't generate interest. The audience simply wasn't there until Clark arrived and made people care. Now let's look at Sue Bird's involvement. She gives these conversations a platform, doesn't push back, and allows the narrative that Clark's fans are somehow harmful to grow stronger. That is a serious concern because Sue Bird has real influence over USA basketball decisions, including Olympic roster selections. And when the biggest star in women's basketball, who drives more attention than everyone else combined, gets left off the Olympic roster, it raises questions. They said it was about experience and roster balance, but it becomes difficult to ignore how much the surrounding commentary framed Clark and her fans as a problem. It's hard to believe the decision was based only on basketball, especially after months of discussions portraying Clark's supporters as toxic or disrespectful to the league's past. At the end of the day, fans who follow Clark aren't hurting the league. They're the reason the league has more attention, more revenue, and more opportunities than ever before. The idea that supporting one superstar somehow harms the sport is not only incorrect, it's dismissive of the reality that without Clark, the WNBA would still be struggling to reach the audience it now enjoys. Instead of welcoming new supporters, some voices inside the WNBA community treat them as outsiders. They forget that every major sports league, NBA, NFL, soccer, tennis, became popular because fans connected with individual stars first. That's normal. That's how growth works. Trying to shame new fans for loving Caitlin Clark doesn't protect the league, pushes people away. And if the WNBA wants to grow, the last thing it can afford is to alienate the very people keeping it alive. Let's finally talk about the thing Katie Nolan kept hinting at without saying directly. When she says that some fans are hyper-focused on one player who doesn't match their idea of a typical WNBA star, she is not talking about basketball skills or strategy. What she's really pointing to, without openly admitting it, is that Caitlin Clark doesn't fit the cultural image many longtime WNBA fans have built around the league. Caitlin Clark is straight and dating a man. She is white. Her game is centered on shooting, creativity, and skill rather than constant physical play. She grew up in the Midwest and carries herself in a polite, quiet way off the court. She doesn't involve herself in social media drama or gossip. And whether people want to admit it or not, part of the WNBA's older fanbase sees that as the problem, not her talent, not her impact, not the millions of dollars she's bringing into the league. The WNBA has always been extremely supportive of LGBTQ players and fans. That representation is important, and it deserves respect. But over time, a portion of the WNBA audience began treating identity as the main reason they follow the league. They care more about who is dating who is in what relationship, and which players interact off the court than they care about the actual game. The culture around the WNBA became a mix of basketball, personal connections, and online drama. Then Caitlin Clark arrived, someone who doesn't fit that culture at all. And suddenly, the people who follow her are treated as unwelcome outsiders. Some of Caitlin's supporters fly across the world to watch her games. They spend money on tickets, travel, jerseys, and merchandise. They enjoy watching her specifically, not necessarily every player in the league. According to Katie Nolan and people who agree with her, that kind of loyalty is somehow hate disguised as love. It's as if fans are required to love every single team and every single player equally, or else they are considered suspicious. But think about how strange that expectation is. Sports fans have always chosen favorites. Nobody said Michael Jordan fans had to love the Detroit Pistons too. Nobody demanded that LeBron James supporters should care about the Sacramento Kings. No one insisted that Tom Brady fans must also cheer for the New York Jets. In every other sport, choosing one player as your favorite is completely normal. Yet in the WNBA, People like Katie Nolan act as if supporting Caitlin Clark more than anyone else is some sort of moral failure. This comes down to jealousy, insecurity, and fear of change. The league is finally growing, but instead of welcoming new people, some voices want to judge them. They want to decide who counts as a real fan. And that mindset has kept the WNBA small for nearly 3 decades. The frustrating part is that all of this is happening during the most exciting period in WNBA history. Viewership is breaking records. Arenas are selling out. Sponsorships are pouring in. Instead of celebrating, people like Katie Nolan are trying to police the fan base. They want new fans to prove themselves by caring about players they've never watched, and by showing loyalty to a league they didn't grow up with. That is not how fandom works. You cannot force passion. And the comments section under that podcast clip proves people are tired of the gatekeeping. Viewers are calling out Katie Nolan's own career failures. Others are criticizing Sue Bird for hosting these discussions, while also having power over USA basketball. Many are saying that the same people demanding kindness and respect never say a word when Caitlin Clark gets mocked, shoved, or attacked by rival fan bases. Because that double standard is real. When Angel Reese fans trash Caitlin Clark online, no one goes on a podcast to talk about dangerous toxicity. When Kennedy Carter shoved Clark away from the ball and some players celebrated it, there was no long conversation about hate disguised as love. When Clark was left off the Olympic team and WNBA Twitter cheered, nobody worried about whether that behavior might hurt the league's image. The criticism always flows in one direction, toward Caitlin and her fans. They're called toxic. They're called bandwagon fans. They're told they don't understand the league. Meanwhile, the hostility directed at Caitlin from other players and supporters gets completely ignored. Here's the truth. The longtime WNBA fanbase is struggling to understand what's happening. For years, they believed the league wasn't growing because of sexism or lack of support. And yes, those things played a part. But now, suddenly one player shows up and completely transforms the league overnight. The attention comes flooding in. Media companies fight for broadcast rights. Sponsors line up. The money appears almost instantly. And that forces a tough question. If one player can change everything so quickly, maybe the league's problems weren't just about outside forces. Maybe the product itself wasn't entertaining enough before. Maybe people simply didn't connect with the game the same way they do now with Caitlin. That is an uncomfortable realization for people who spent years defending the league and blaming everyone else for its struggles. Instead of celebrating a superstar who finally brings mainstream excitement, some fans want to downplay her impact or label her supporters as a problem. They attach disclaimers. Yes, the league is growing, but the growth is coming from the wrong kind of fans. Yes, the numbers are up, but they're up for the wrong reasons. This attitude is hurting the league more than helping it. The WNBA has never been financially self-sustaining. It has survived because the NBA covered its losses for 27 years. That kind of support cannot last forever. Caitlin Clark changed the financial picture instantly. She created real value. Value the league has never had before. And instead of embracing it fully, some voices want to criticize the very people who made that possible. So here is my position spoken simply. I'm not a WNBA fan. I'm a Caitlin Clark fan. I watch because of her. I follow her career, buy her merch, and enjoy her games. And if she retired tomorrow, I probably wouldn't keep watching the WNBA. That doesn't make me toxic. That makes me a normal sports fan with limited time who enjoys watching a specific athlete. Millions of people feel the same way. And they are the reason the league is finally growing. Instead of pushing them away, the league should welcome them. But people like Katie Nolan keep insisting that new fans must be corrected, educated, and reshaped. That's not how growth works. That's not how sports work. And that mindset could undo all the progress the league has made. So I'll leave you with this question. Are new fans really the problem? Or is the problem the people who keep telling new fans they don't belong? Let me know your thoughts. And if you're tired of this gatekeeping too, stick around because these conversations are far from over.